to also introduce my co-host joining me tonight, and that's none other than Dr. Vincent Polite. Doc, how
Hey,
you doing
what's
this
up?
evening?
What's up? What's going on?
Hey, man, what's going on, Doc, is I don't know if you noticed, but I've kind of toned it down a little bit from our normal introduction because what we have to talk about this evening, man, is a somber conversation, but a conversation that needs to, has to, must be had. So, man, I tell you, Doc, thank you for joining me this evening, man, because this is not a comfortable conversation we're about to have this evening.
No, not at all. The thing is that we have to understand that as a community and beyond, we have to look out for each other. We have to be willing to have these hard conversations, the necessary conversations, and make sure that we get the community involved and a part of it. So, this I think this is one of those much needed community conversations.
Well, Doc, here's what I'm going to do, man, because I know those folk that are viewing us right now are probably scratching their head and saying to themselves, what is so serious that we got to be so somber? And what's so serious that we're going to have a conversation about this evening is the conversation about domestic violence. Doc, can you frame this for me, please?
Okay, in looking at the stats about domestic violence, this time of year is the most prevalent time that domestic violence occurs. October is Domestic Violence Month, but this season seems to generate a lot more calls. Based on the statistics that are out there. A lot of times due to family dynamics, economics, stressors that tend to not be able to be addressed. And we have conflict over various reasons that come to head during this time of the year.
Hey, Doc, and I hate to interrupt you, but man, you shared some facts with me earlier today that I was totally unaware of. You asked me, man, what time of the year or what cycle does
What
the
day?
occurrence
I
of
asked you
domestic
what
violence?
day does the most domestic violence occur?
Yeah, so when is that, Doc?
It's Super Bowl Sunday.
Why would that be?
I think there are many factors. Conflict about watching the game, conflict about betting on the game, adding in alcohol consumption,
Hey,
and
Doc, you know we're gonna have to source this, right?
we could easily source that. It's part of a data set, I believe, from the CDC. Uh,
We'll push it out to people, but I wanted Doc because when you told me that, I was oblivious to that being the highest occurrence. So Doc, man, without any further ado, man, we have to introduce these two young ladies that have the courage, man, to come on the sit down tonight to have this conversation. And man, without any further ado, it brings me great pride and pleasure, not because of the circumstances that we're talking about, but because of the courage that these two women have. And this is not them. This is not their first time going public and speaking about domestic violence. They've been at this for a long time, giving people knowledge and information, and also giving people the courage. So with that being said, Doc, I want to introduce our guest, and that is Miss Monique Morris and Miss Carmen Ruiz. Hey, welcome to the sit down. I was about to say Let's Talk Nation, and y'all know that's my other partner in crime, attorney Greg Jackson, but he'll be here momentarily. But Miss Monique, Miss Carmen, how are you two doing this evening?
Good evening. I'm doing great. So good to see both of you.
Good to see the both of you.
Great to see you guys. Always glad to be on the air with you guys. Sad that it has to be about this topic, but I appreciate the opportunity always.
Well,
Okay,
thank you both.
hold on for a second. Just so you both can know, turn your volume down as low as you can hear so we don't get your feedback. There you go. Okay.
So y'all and both of you know our executive producer and my co-host for the sit down, Doc Polite. But Miss Monique, Miss Carmen, we got to jump right into this because of just how important this is. Let me ask the both of you and both of you. I want your response, but can you tell us a bit about yourself and what has inspired you? What has given you the courage to come on and talk about domestic violence?
I'll go ahead. I'll get us started. My name is Carmen Ruiz. I'm a small business owner. I was in an abusive marriage for 8 years, both emotionally and violent. And, my motivation is my six nieces, six young ladies that my sisters have allowed me to be a big part of their life. And I know that they're watching, and so they know my story. And it's just a reminder to them that things like this do happen, but we can overcome it and we can do something positive with the negative things that happen in our lives.
Thank you, Miss Carmen. Appreciate you.
And good evening. I'm Monique Morris. I'm an educator, a community advocate, a survivor. My motivation is my three sons because for them to know that that is not a way to treat a woman.
Let me ask both of you this question, and Doc, jump in, man, wherever you feel that you need to. But to both of you, respectfully, let me ask you, what are some of the misconceptions about domestic violence that you feel are important to address?
Well, I think a misconception is that it is going to stop. It's not going to stop unless you get some major help. So it goes dormant for a while and then it's back. I love you. I won't do that anymore. I won't hit you again. I love you. Let's make up. Let's have sex. And it's back to normal. And then, down the line, it comes back. So unless you get major help, it's not going to stop. So you have to get out of the situation.
Ms. Modi, you just answered a question without me having to ask it, because one of the questions that I was going to ask is, okay, how does a person who's committing domestic violence, because we just can't say that there's no hope, and you just answered that question, unless you get help.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Ms. Carmen, what are your thoughts?
I happen to think that the biggest misconception is that something happened for domestic violence to happen. Domestic violence is totally interpersonal. It's the abuser's issue. It's not the nagging wife or the wife that did something wrong or he wasn't happy with her. It really happens because that abuser, whether it's woman or male, is dealing with something interpersonal and they need the help, not just the family unit.
Hey, Doc, I think it's important, and please jump in here, but I think it's
Yeah.
important for the audience to know that domestic violence doesn't just happen to women.
Well, what they're describing is spokes on what's called a power and control wheel. Have you ever heard of that, Rod?
No.
Okay, so in the cycle of domestic violence, there are different domains. There's the physical and sexual violence, and the power control exerted using intimidation, using emotional abuse, using isolation, minimizing, excuse me, denying and blaming, using children, using male privilege, using economic abuse, using coercion and threats. These are all tools that the abuser will in order to maintain the power and control in a relationship. And oftentimes they go through what's called the violence phase, then the honeymoon phase. Oh, I love you so much. You make me I love you so much. You make me crazy. I'm just crazy about you. I don't want to lose you, and all of this kind of thing. Women don't understand that it's not a problem that they cause in any way, shape, or form, but the abuser's inability to communicate and properly handle his emotions. This is what's classically a deficit of emotional IQ. They don't understand.
Hey, Doc, you just said something, and I'll be the first to confess, man, I am no expert on this, but when you mention women, this is a situation that also impacts men, correct?
Right, but in most cases, the prevalent abuser is men and the victim is women. Now, this still applies to women who are abusers, and there are women that take it. I say take advantage because I've seen one. We had a couple that was in counseling with us, my wife and I, and we used to do what was called intimate focus counseling. So we did it at our house, and we would have our clients come there. We had a room, and it was a tranquil room, and they would sit in. Well, they showed up one afternoon, and they were actually fighting on the doorstep, and the wife was the aggressor. So we immediately told them, hey, we can't help you guys because domestic violence can never be solved with counseling. There's something deeper. You need psychological counseling, and we will refer you out to that type of counseling because ours was faith based.
Hey,
So you have to understand that it's always about the person's inability to handle their emotions in a constructive manner and convey themselves in a constructive manner.
well, speaking of that, Doc, for those of you who are watching the sit down, we have our guest, Miss Monique Morris, and we have Carmen Ruiz, who they didn't just start doing this, and this being letting people know about domestic violence, letting people know how you navigate, and the only thing I can come up with, how you navigate through and around it. And if you want to join the conversation, you can call in. The phone number is 352-431-7365. Once again, if you want to call in, that phone number is 352-431-7365. Miss Carmen, Miss Mo, I got to ask you this question. How did either you find the strength or the resources to leave the situation that you're in, and what advice would you give to others?
I have a very strong family unit. I had a very strong church family at the time, and so I felt that it was the right time and found the strength to walk away. And I think for me, I was very blessed because it was mutual. I think we had both kind of come to the end of the road, but understanding that in most cases, the most dangerous time for a woman is when she's trying to leave her perpetrator. And so I was very blessed and fortunate that that was not my case. But um, the journey is long, but the power to leave comes in the support that you have around you, being able to talk over and over again. I did this for 8 years, left 4 times. My family never turned their back on me. They just allowed me to share. They allowed me to feel safe.
So Miss Carmen, let me ask you this question. Your strength was your family that was a support system for you. What would you say, and Mo, don't jump in here as well, but what would you say to people who don't have that family support system?
Find community, right? And so that can be either at, any of the resources with like a Harbor House in you guys' area, a Beacon Center here in Volusia County. And so those kinds of programs have trauma informed counseling. They can help you get safe ways out. And it also provides community so that you're around people that are going through the same thing as you. Because understanding that you're not alone is a big part of recovery after domestic violence. And being
Man,
able to
Okay.
leave.
So I had a different situation. So I was in silence. So no one knew what was happening in my home. Every time we were out, you were thought we were the best couple ever. We were always smiling and everything, and no one knew. So when I decided to walk away, I prayed a lot. And when I decided to walk away, um, it was just a day. Like I prayed and it just came this day. And today was the day that he has to go today. Like it just came to me, like he has to go today. And then I knew it was nobody but God because he left. I said, pack a small bag today, come back tomorrow when we go to school and get the rest of your items. And we never looked back. So I knew it was, but I have the family support now. Like when I told my story the first time, it was not a dry eye in the place. And they were like, that happened to you? Yes, it happened to me. But I
Miss
was in
Moore.
silence. I didn't want nobody to know because that person was from the same community that I was from. And so you were thinking like, and then you don't marry to divorce. So I felt that it would get better, but it never did.
Why did you feel compelled, Miss Morris, to not say anything?
I just did not because I think my dad, if I would have told my dad, it would have been a mess. So that's why I just prayed about it, started putting my eggs in my own basket, started looking for places because I was thinking if he's not going to leave, then I'm going to pack up the boys and we're going to leave. So I started applying for apartments and all of this stuff because I was just going to get out. But I don't know, I just did not want it to happen because it was a whole bunch of family, friends, people in the same church. So it's harder when that's happening and that's going on.
Okay.
Here's something. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, Miss Ruiz, I want to ask you the first time it occurred to you, what went through your mind?
Oof. Uh, I think on top of the devastation of that this is someone that I just married. um, Gosh, I was so confused. So many things went through my head because I put like all my eggs in one basket. There was some behavior in the dating process that was a little unhealthy. And so, and I had brushed them off and just kind of stood up for him. And then, you know, now we're married and now dad's going to walk you down the aisle. And now, you're in it. And kind of the same to like Monique's point, you're in church together, you're doing all this stuff, and you just kind of, it kind of, I would say that it feels like you're in like living two totally different lives because there's this life at home, and we did this for 8 years, time at home, and then there's this time outside to the world that's very different. It's totally, you kind of learn just to fake it. But I think I learned to fake it from the first day because I was in so much shock that I took direction. Like, this is how we're going to behave.
Okay, and another thing that's common, and I want an answer from both of you. Did they express any type of ownership before this happened?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes. Like we would ride in the car. I could like if I spoke to a guy, I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh, you know him?" I'm like, "No, I don't know him." I'm like, "Well, don't speak to him. Why did you smile when you spoke?" And different stuff like that. So that was hard.
Okay, and you, Miss Ruiz?
I had a lot of male friends when I was single, and so that I'd grown up with in high school, and I wasn't allowed to talk to any of them. And he also, we were a little bit long distance in the dating time, and so he bought me a computer and would go to sleep with me on the computer, and like wanted to monitor all my steps, like what was I doing, wanted to make sure I was in bed sleeping, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Let me ask this question. So, what were some of the other challenges in both of you's journey to feel and become safer?
After
Yes.
or during?
Well, you know what? That's a good
I think, I
question.
mean,
During and after.
Well, during for me, I knew he wasn't going to do anything outside. And when he would do it at home, I would go outside and walk or something like that. But that last time when my son grabbed him and said, if you hit my mom one more time, I will kill you. then that's when it was real. Like, I think that's when I got the, like, this is real. I got to get out of this because I don't want my kids to think this is how it's supposed to be. So you just learn to cope with it. You know, I love to go to work every day. Like, when it was time to go to work, I was so happy when it was time to go to work because I didn't have to be there. And I tried to stay out as long as I
Yes.
could before I came
And,
home.
and that's important that you did that because, and I don't share this with a lot of people, but I'll share this here now. I was a child raised in domestic violence, and I saw my mother fight, shoot, and stab. And I remember having an episode like your son, where one Friday night we were all in the car, and they were arguing, and he reached over and slapped my mom, and I had a slushie in my hand, and I just threw it at him and started beating on him and screaming. And that was the point where my mother decided, oh no, I can't do this. And so that was like the final straw in that situation. And it had such an impact on me that now I don't even argue with my wife. You know, it's not, we don't solve our conflicts that way. We sit down and we talk.
Yeah.
And so, but it's also had a negative effect because I don't allow anyone to hit me. And I tell people that I will be as peaceful as you are, but man, woman, or child, I'm going to defend myself. So, it has a long range impact, and it's still a part of what kind of informed me about relationships.
Yeah, because at first I was like, I'm not getting married again, but now I'm open to it. Like, I prayed about it, and I used to say, they was like, are you ever going to get married again? I'm like, no, I would never get married again because you have that negative thought in your mind. But I'm open to marriage now if I find somebody that I would get married again.
Listen, Rod, I'm going to plug myself here for a minute. I wrote this book centering around preventing young women, young ladies, girls and young ladies in their teens, 20s, and 30s from getting into relationship with boyfriends who are damaged. This teaches them what to ask, what to look for when they start out. And domestic violence is a part of the reason that I wrote this book. It's called The New Boyfriend Cheat Code. So it's on Amazon. I'm sorry, that's our commercial.
That's a good commercial. I wrote it down.
Good commercial, Doc. Let me ask this question, Miss Carmen, and Miss Mo. I do want you to answer this question as well. But can you share how you've been taking care of your mental and emotional health while you were going through it, and when you finally got out of it?
Lots of prayer. I mean, I feel like that's always kind of been the center of like my personal journey, but when I was in the relationship, but especially after, and then the peace. And I think somebody said it before, Tari, you said, you referred somebody out that wasn't the right fit for you, for your counseling. I was always in counseling all the time, but the shift for me came when I started receiving trauma-informed counseling. And that was really critical. And it's super critical when pastors and churches that have faith-based counseling, when they come across this kind of a situation, that along with their faith-based counseling, that they're also referring people out to trauma-informed counseling. Because we often forget about the individuals. And for me, that changed my whole life. It changed the way that I looked at the past, where I was today, and being able to enter another relationship in a healthy way and identify toxic behavior, both from him and from myself, right? Because you pick up things in relationships that are oftentimes hard to let go. And so I even learned in my process through my trauma-informed counseling that there were some things I needed to change as an individual too.
Miss Ruiz, Miss Morris, can both of you, because I got to hit the pause button right there, can both of you articulate on how important it is to get professional counseling? I mean, I realize that we have this knack within ourselves to go to our friends that are trying to give us support, and it's legitimate. but they're not trained to give the kind of
Yeah.
counseling and support that you really need. So can y'all articulate how important it is to get professional help?
Yes, it's very important to get professional help because, like, when people call me all the time saying I have someone that's in a domestic violence relationship, I said, I'm not an expert. I experienced it and I want to help others. I'm an advocate for it. But I give them Allison Suarez's number all the time at the Harbor House. Call Allison. She's right at the Popka Police Department. Call her and she will set you up and you will get the counseling that you need because I'm not that expert. I try to help you get out of the situation. I will call someone, a professional, to help at that time, but we're not the experts. But the healing process for me is helping other people.
Man, that is so important. Miss Carmen, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to agree. I just, like I said, it was a big part of my healing process. And I think, it's important for family too. Oftentimes, family they're kind of lost in this journey and they want to help you and they don't know how to help. And I always tell people, listen, the best way to help is once they're out of the situation, encouraging them to get trauma informed counseling. Trauma informed counseling. It's so critical because when you're out of the relationship, oftentimes people think, well, she's great. She made it out. She's so strong. But the reality is that the journey is long. Monique can tell you how long she's been out of her marriage, and it's a process. I know her and I, spent hours on the phone just 6 years ago, really kind of working through our process together. And and I still do that all the time. I mean, it's a forever changing life event.
Hey, both of you have, basically y'all gave me this perfect segue for those who are listening, whether it's you or whether it's a friend that you need to get some help and support for. This is the time that I would ask, hey, pull out your cell phone, pull out a pen, a piece of paper. The National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-7233. Once again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And we've also mentioned the Harbor House, which has done some great work in this community. And the Harbor House's number is 407-886-2856. Once again, 407-886-2856. I must say that to the both of you, you are special guests. We have a special guest of family members that are coming in for our 7 o'clock show. And this is a family that in the last 2 weeks, for everybody who's been watching the news and things of that nature, Miss Shakiria Rucker lost her life. And I have to take, our hats off that the family has the courage to come in this evening. Her mother, Mrs. Elaine Rucker, her brother, Mr. Clarence Thornton, and her sister Leona Thornton will be in at the 7 o'clock hour. But Miss Ruiz, Miss Morris, we thank you for really shaping this for those who are listening to this show this evening, because this is serious. This is serious. Man, I tell you, I don't know any other way to say this to anybody that's listening. But if you need help, don't wait. If you have a family member or a friend that needs help, we've given you some resources. Please use those resources, but don't sit on the sideline and do nothing. Miss Ruiz, Miss Morris, I gotta, we never get through all the questions that we want to ask, but I gotta ask you, how can friends and family be supportive of someone who's experienced domestic violence?
I think listening sometimes is better than sharing.
Yes.
And so just listening, allowing your family member or friend to be vulnerable. Sometimes we want to encourage people in strength, but understanding that this is very complex. Domestic violence isn't just physical, it can be emotional, it can be sexual, it can be financial. There's a lot of pieces to someone's life that they're trying to rebuild and comprehend. and then the added factor of children if they have children. And so just listening and encouraging them to get that trauma informed counseling are the two things that I would recommend. And listening in silence sometimes is great.
Yes. The listening is very important. Don't tell them to leave. Don't tell them to stay. Don't get involved. Don't try to take it into your own hands. Tell them to get the help they need and let them know you are loved, you are special, and you are important. You have to let them know that and that they have a purpose in life.
Hey, Doc, can you help me out here? Can you can you be real quick on articulating how domestic violence can have an ACE effect on children?
Well, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, like I shared my story. It shaped me in a positive manner, but it can teach kids that this is what love looks like. And so that becomes the model in which they now go about instilling in their family and their relationships. Boys, they want to control their little girlfriends, and you can monitor this and your kids see how, watch the interaction between your sons and daughters and who they date. A lot of girls become victim of this in middle and high school when they start socializing, and they're afraid. They're afraid to tell the teacher. They're afraid to tell the parents. And, when you're a child, victimization looks different. One of the things that I was trained to watch for when I go into a home was watch how the children, smaller children, respond to the adult. If they express some physical signs of fear, withdrawal, emotions, bedwetting, okay, reluctant to or scared to move from where they are, those are signs, and those can show up later in ACE. All of those things change that child's behavior. We can go deeper, but that's the gist of it.
So, Doc, tell people again what ACEs is so that everybody's aware.
ACEs is adverse childhood experiences, and it's a 10 question assessment that addresses different domains in the childhood development. And you can take ACEs at any time. It's not advocated for small children, but especially in late teens
And adults. And adults. I mean, we've all had, like you mentioned, Doc, we've all had childhood experiences and they carry over with us. And a lot of times we don't realize why we react to certain things a certain way, but it's a result of that childhood experience that we've had that's been adverse, if you would. So let me ask this because I know we're winding down. Ms. Ruiz, Ms. Morris, how has sharing your stories, how has it been healing for you, and what do you think the impact has been on others?
Well, it makes me feel so good to help someone, to tell someone else about my story. I want to help them. I have forgave the victim, my ex-husband. I mean, you have to move past that. When I first started speaking out, I called him and I told him and I let him know that this is what I think Carmen and we did the same thing. We called and them know that this is what we're going to do. We're out advocating for other people. That happened to us. Okay, it was in the past, but now it's my job to help others. So it has been great for me.
Yeah, and for me as well, I think we all need a purpose, and I think it's good to when you survive something like what we have survived, and it's good to know that it can make a difference in someone else's life, and it's provided a lot of purpose for me, but also that feeling of survival, because I feel like I didn't survive it well, but the healing process and the journey of sharing and just feeling comfortable, being uncomfortable with this conversation has given me a strength that is very powerful in my healing process.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I will
we're
tell
so
you
much
both.
stronger now.
I will tell you both. I will never forget back in 2017 when I was a sitting commissioner, and you two shared your story, and we actually had a domestic violence forum. That was educational for me and helping me to understand what takes place out there. But watching you two get energy from one another with telling your story and then listening to the audience. And I don't know if both of you remember, but Pastor, help me. We because we conducted at Oasis Church.
Yes,
Pastor Jimmy
Superior.
Here we go.
Saberio,
Yes.
and you actually got Pastor Jimmy to get up and give his testimony as it relates to his own experience
Yes.
with his mother
Yes.
and how he felt about her being abused. And you just saw the entire audience. You could feel this calm, but you also can feel the education and the relief that a lot of people had, that it's all right to talk about it.
Yeah,
And so I wanted to thank you too, because that was
And
that
we
was
cried
incredible.
the whole time. We cried a
We
lot.
did cry.
So we have grown. We have grown.
Bro. But I have to say, Rod, I think we should be saying thank you to you,
Yes,
because
thank you.
during that time, if I remember correctly, you had about 18 forums that year talking about social issues, and you really, I remember Monique and I and some others sitting around the table and saying that we wanted to have this conversation, and you looked at us and you said yes, and you trusted us, and you know you were a huge part in this healing process. I know for me, for
Yes.
giving us the space, but also for an entire community. I met Stephanie Dixon at that
Yes.
forum,
Yes.
and she recently spoke for me at another forum, a community response here in my community. And so, it's sometimes the little things that you don't realize are big are really huge things. And so, thank you for just being a champion for advocacy and for issues like this, and empowering us to have a voice.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. Thank the both of you, because I got to say, the leadership that you two have exhibited and the growth that I've seen with the both of you, it is incredible. And I did speak to Miss Stephanie Daniel Dixon today, and she told me to tell both of you hello. She regrets that she was unfortunately not able to be here. But Miss Morris, Miss Ruiz, let me tell you both, from 2017, I've seen the growth. I continue to hear the work that you're doing out there. Man, you are the best ambassadors so that people can not fear what's taking place. And Monique, I think you said it earlier about suffering in silence.
Yes.
You two have done some incredible work. I know you'll continue to do more incredible work. And, I got to give it up to my cohort, Doc Polite, because
Yes, Dr. Polite. Yes.
Doc will go and get the research, and he knows how to break it down. Him and his wife, as he mentioned earlier, they provide counseling services. And the point that I wanted to make, because when you two did this forum back in 2017, we got a lot of people calling us saying that helped them tremendously. And one of the reasons that I brought up getting professional help is because a lot of the women, and there was a couple of men that engaged us as well, they were telling us that where they initially went to get help guided them, unfortunately, not in the right direction. And so that's why I got to stress. There's resources out there. There's professional individuals out there that can help. But the leadership that you two are exhibiting, I mean, it's incredible.
Thank you.
Doc, what's your thoughts, man?
Again, we need advocates and champions of this cause continuously. Not just women. This is not a woman's responsibility.
Correct.
A lot of this is men's responsibility. We need to start educating young men as to how to navigate relationships. I think that's where a lot of it goes off the track. Young girls are warned. Young men, we don't warn them about appropriate behavior. This is how you treat a young lady. You don't, use this language with her. Treat her like you would treat your mother or sister, but some of them treat them the same way. So
Exactly.
you have to be careful. But you know, everything is learned behavior. We people don't like to understand that, but it's lifelong learned behavior. This was in every one of these abusers' background, whether it's man or woman. This was a model of relationship, love, or structure that they witnessed firsthand as children, and it's what they know. Okay? If you are raised in a Japanese household, you don't come to America and immediately speak English, and vice versa. Your environment dictates how you act and what you know. So we've got to do a better job of educating young men. This should be a curriculum in every uh, male-focused outreach program, from it
Well,
football
you're
to
right, Doc. And because we're winding down, I want to give our guests an opportunity, Doc. But I got to give a shout out to organizations that have led from the front. The South Apopka Ministerial Alliance have led from the front. And Ms. Morris, I know you happen to be in a leadership position with the South Apopka Ministerial Alliance. Hey, they're leading. Advent Health. Anytime I call over to Advent Health for support with community issues, they've led from the front. Ms. Carmen, I know because you were a integral part of our local community, and I know God just saw it fit for you to continue to grow, and now you're on the beach side. So what organizations over there that you've been working with that have been supportive?
I'm so very blessed to chair the Beacon Center, our local domestic violence center here. And so the Beacon Center is our certified domestic violence shelter. And that number, for those that are watching from Volusia County, is 386-257-2297. But we've got great partnerships going, with our sheriff's department, our police departments, and, our local hospitals. And that's super critical because
Ms. Ruiz, say that number again. Put that number out there again.
yes, 386-257-2297.
Okay, thank you. Hey, we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to start with you, Ms. Ruiz. What would you love to leave our listeners with?
And you are powerful in your testimony, in your story, and your life experiences, and you can change someone's life. And even if it's a one-on-one conversation, it doesn't have to be a platform like this. One-on-one conversations are super powerful, and so don't be afraid to share, because you could save someone's life. We are not in the advocacy business; we're in the homicide prevention business.
Oh,
And that
wow.
is unfortunately the truth, but that is the reality of domestic violence.
Boy, you're so true. You're so right. Ms. Morris.
Yes, I just would like to say, yes, get the help you need. You are powerful. Be motivated. Get- and I put on my Facebook page, like, don't think that you're in this forever. This is something that you can come out of. So you are loved. I keep saying that love does not hurt.
Man, boy, I tell you, true spoken words. Doc Polite.
that's all I'm gonna say. Listen, this book. Listen, the last event I did, I was a guest lecturer, and I sold about 25 of these books, and several grandmothers bought this for their daughters. So this is an excellent book. It is on Amazon, so just check for the new boyfriend cheat code, and it should come up. I think it's $4.99 on Amazon, but it's worth every penny. It's got some good lessons in it. Use it.
All right, Doc Polite. Hey, Ms. Morris, Ms. Ruiz, once again, I got to tell you, man, from the top of my heart, we appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, being courageous. I would just say to you, man, please, please, please continue the great work that you're doing. It matters. It matters. So if you ever need us on the sit down, and also, on Let's Talk Nation with attorney Greg Jackson and myself, our door will always be open. But once again, I want to thank you both for your courage on joining us for the sit down. You'll always be welcome.
Rod,
Thank you for
Thank
thinking
you.
of us.
Absolutely.
we have to have these ladies back soon.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
We have to have them back, because I think this is a ongoing conversation, and it's great, and more people need to be exposed to it.
Well, hey, so y'all know y'all will be getting a call from us in 2024.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for joining us on the Sit Down. Y'all take
Good
care.
night.
Good night.
All right, so we're gonna exit on out, and just so our audience knows, stick around. We are gonna go into this thing deeper on the next show, which is Let's Talk Nation. We're gonna have Rod. What's? Give me the information on the next show.
Okay, we will be having the family of Miss Rucker with us. We'll have the mother, Miss Elaine Rucker. We'll have the brother, Clarence Thornton, as well as the sister, Leona Thornton. And our purpose on having them on the show is so that they can share, so that we can be supportive, but we want to help people to understand. Let's don't wait to get help. We'll see you on Let's Talk Nation at 7 o'clock.
All right.